Another one bites the dust. This channel right here called The Rape of Justice. It was an associated channel with Eustace Mullins. I don't know who was running it. Eustace Mullins wrote a book called The Rape of Justice. Anyway, it had a bunch of Eustace Mullins videos, and it had thousands of archived videos of recordings of people talking about the occult and conspiracies and what was actually going on in this world. And these fuckers took it down because they were exposing Sabbatai and Frankists. And specifically, this is the... So, if you go to this channel, it says, this account has been terminated for violating YouTube's community guidelines. And what did it violate? What did it violate? Let's see what it violated. Well, the videos that were originally on there was Sabbatai and Frankist Roots of the Nazis. He had 5 videos. These are from people that reposted it. It was 5 videos of a recording of Barry Chemish and a few other Jews discussing the origins of the Nazis and how it was connected to Sabbatai and Frankists. And what they were talking about here, I'll see if I can find it in this. So,
Aaron, give people the website and how
there's only one video left of this 5 videos. There's only one video left of these 5 videos. And it's probably tame compared to all the other information.
Come and we're having a fundraising drive called Go Knob Oktoberfest. If someone could give us
anti-Semitic sites left and right. Look, let's go back to the Satmars and their.
All right.
Well,
so let's go back to Hungary, 1940.
This is why they took his channel down, because they had this and the Red Kabbalah flagged. Jews talking about the Sabbatai and Frankists.
In their monasteries, and they sent them all over the world. It was the Vatican that saved the Nazis after the war.
I think that you're refusing to look at some very important aspects of it. First of all, don't forget that actually there was a problem within the Vatican with the Polish Church. A lot of the Polish priests say Jews, but it turns out that the Polish Church got into the crosshairs of Rome. And
their role in the Holocaust. I don't think
thousands of
They took out all the parts that actually connected the dots. Fucking scumbags. They fucking erased all the videos that told the truth. Now this is what they were covering up right here. Rudolf von Sabbatendorf. Adam Alfred Rudolf Glauer, better known under his pseudo-aristocratic alias Rudolf Freiherr von Sabbatendorf, was a German occultist, writer, and intelligence agent and political activist. Adam Alfred Rudolf Glauer, born 9th of November 1875 to 8th of May 1945, better known under his pseudo-aristocratic alias Rudolf Freiherr von Sabbatendorf, or von Sabbatendorf, was a German occultist, writer, intelligence agent, and political activist. He was the founder of the Thule Society, a post-World War I German occultist organization where he played a key role and that influenced many members of the Nazi Party. He was a Freemason, a Sufi of the Bektashi order after his conversion to Islam, and the practitioner of meditation, astrology, numerology, and alchemy. He also used the alias Erwin Tor. He formed the Thule Society, which was one of the occult societies behind the formation of the Nazis. All right? And where did he get it from? He went to study with the Bektashi. Now, let's go back.
You can get customized insurance and save money with Liberty Mutual.
Declared himself to be the Messiah. The effect of the Lurian Kabbalah is that it contributed greatly to the widely held expectations and hope placed on the coming of a Messiah at the time of Sabbatai Zevi's advent of the 18th day elements of Judaism. Many
Our world today is one plagued with war, corruption, greed, and lies to the point that it has become normality. It is an open secret, officially written into canon law in 1140 AD in the law book Gratans Dectorum. This in effect only solidified the Jewish role in the medieval banking system, which turned out to be a blessing and a curse for the Jews. Things out of hunger for wealth and power, you must look at the fact that these kings promoted, defended, and continually allowed the Jews in these positions even after knowing the outcome of before, then invited them back for the same roles. During this period following the Crusades, and when the majority of Spain had been retaken by the Christians in the late 13th and early 14th century, the Jews were no longer under the protection of the Muslims, which they had thrived under for almost 700 years. Although the treatment of the Jews was not as bad as the conquered Muslims at first, the Jews of all non-Christians were subjugated to the lowest. After After obtaining his biblical bride, on his way back to Jerusalem, he passed through Gaza, where he met a man known as Nathan of Gaza. Was opposed by the leaders of Judaism at the time is a combination of his birthday to be celebrated with feasts and his form of Judaism in secret. But after being caught in secret, yet the Sabbateans continued to practice and even formed small communities scattered across the Ottoman Empire and Europe. The seeds were planted. Zevi gave birth to a monster that would lead to great wars that would forever shape the world far beyond the prophets of the Zohar could ever imagine. Using V's twisted interpretation of Jewish scripts and under the guidance of a man named Jacob Frank, Zvi's following would infiltrate all major religions, all major political parties, as well as secret societies, orchestrating wars and massacres through subversion and corruption, order out of chaos, and redemption through sin.
They erased it. They fucking erased it. They got rid of the association of Sabbatai Zevi to the Bektashi. This is what they're trying to fucking hide. This is the glue between all of it. The fact that the Thule Society was formed by an initiate of the Bektashi, and that Sabbatai Zevi fucking got initiated by the Bektashi.
Sabbatai should be known to every Jew. He really should be in Jewish history something unique and huge, because more than half the Jews of the world thought he was the Messiah. And they did incredibly stupid things.
All right, well, they succeeded. They took down Rape of Justice channel because he showed that he had a Jewish historian. This is Barry Chemish right here. He was murdered. Barry Chemish. He was murdered. That's funny. He looks kind of like Sabbatai Zevi. He was murdered by these fuckers, and they took down the Rape of Justice's channel because he had Jewish historians like Barry Chemish and a couple others that were exposing the fact that Sabbatai Zevi was initiated into the Bektashi, which connects them to the Thule Society and the Nazis, which means that it was all a fucking game. And our ancestors fucking died for it. I found something on it. I had to dig. I had to dig for it because I got rid of the direct info. So.
@gmail.com.
All right, conspill.com@gmail.com. All right, let's go. These are your subjects, and I'm going to go your way now. Whether is the Masonic Illuminati, Frankist Communist, Rothschild Round Table Alliance at the beginning of the 20th century.
Good, great. So we were getting to Carol Quigley, who is the guru of Clinton, a very, very important historian in Georgetown University, who was the historian of the secret society called the Round Table Group. And he writes about this again, that many Americans were misled or falsely believed that there is a communist conspiracy to subvert under America and change it fundamentally and its constitution. And then he writes, well, you know something, it is right. The extreme right wingers in America, they're right, but they're wrong. It's not the communists orchestrating it. It's a group which I'm a part of called the Roundtable Group. The Roundtable Group, which was created by Cecil Rhodes. And Cecil Rhodes was, of course, funded and supported all the way by the Rothschild. And after Cecil Rhodes died, Rothschild, by the will of Cecil Rhodes, took over the Round Table. Carol Quigley writes about it. And they even set a scholarship, the Rhodes Scholarship, for Cecil Rhodes to further his vision of a new world order. And one of the important scholars of the Rhodes Scholars, for example, is, of course, Bill Clinton, Rachel Maddow, people in the media, people who you will see are very subversive.
Christopherson.
Yeah, and these people, they what they do is they try to look a part of the American society as if they are American like everyone else, while within what they do in secrecy is subvert under it. Now, the thing is, Carol Quigley writes that they were heavily involved with communists. He even writes about a committee which was set to investigate it, which the Round Table afterwards, they put it away. They didn't want anyone to know about it because it was they were afraid people will know about this committee. But everyone today can read about this documents of this committee. It's called the Reese Committee. It shows how the roundtable groups in America, which were the Ford Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, Carnegie Foundation, were collaborating with communists within America to subvert the education system and create the public education and dump down America and put in Marxism into America's education system. And today, of course, you can see just the fact that a guy like Barack Obama is the president of America just show how far they went. Even
I'd say there's no difference between Clinton, the Bushes, Barack Obama. You can't find an ounce of policy change between them.
Absolutely. They're all into making big government as big as possible, taking over every aspect of the American life, and, of course, subverting under the Constitution. Now, it's good that you brought up the Bushes, because, for example, the Round Table, they were mainly made from, headed by many different kind of international bankers like the Rothschilds, and another name which quickly mentions is another family called the Mayers. The Mayers. There are another family which were heavily involved in the Frankfurt Illuminati Lodge, which I mentioned earlier, which was a part of the Sabbateans in Frankfurt in the 18th century. So again, you have those Illuminati families creating this roundtable group, which were collaborating with communism. Actually, communism is Illuminati, and you can read about it. It's very interesting. In Trotsky's own autobiography, which he wrote, he writes about the Illuminati around page 90 or 95. He says that the Illuminati were the forerunners of revolution. When he writes revolutions, he means the revolution movement which he's heading.
I don't get one thing. All right, you've got lots of quotes about the Illuminati. How has Sabbatanism stayed so secret?
Well, the thing is, again, they try to look a part of the society, and they're not allowed to show outwardly.
Nobody knows they exist. Look, they've been wiped out of Jewish history. You can't find two words on Sabbatai in Jewish history. The effect of this group is profound. Their reputation is non-existent.
Yeah, but that's, well, according to tradition, to, establishment history. But if you go into and dig really deep, is what you and Antelman and I did, you can find it. But it's very, very difficult. I mean, I had to go through hundreds of books to actually find out all this information. It was almost impossible. I almost gave up in the middle. But, it's there, and it's official, but you won't learn it anywhere. You have to dig it up yourself.
Look, we should talk about a Tartuk, which you were referring to before. This is the Donmeh cult, that's the Sabbatean cult of Turkey. And by the way, I'm going to give you a story. I'm going to cut in right now. When I was at Hebrew University, there was a lovely Turkish woman, a Christian, and she told me how grateful she is for all the freedom Jews have brought to Turkey. I said, what are you talking about? There's 50,000 Jews in Turkey maximum. And she says, no, there's millions. And she knew exactly what she was saying. There's an underbelly cult running Turkey that really does stretch from the Sabbatai to the Donmeh to Frankism and so forth. If you want to talk about that, the slaughter of the Armenians was a Sabbatean pre-Holocaust cursor, go to it.
Well, yeah, actually, you know a little bit more about it than I, but really what's important about it is, again, it was a revolutionary group within Turkey disguising itself as part of the society in Turkey, subverting it from within, and it is also one of the outcomes of what they did was the Armenian Holocaust.
Let's just talk about another outcome that people like Ben Gurion and Ben Zvi, they all went to Turkey while this Holocaust of the Armenians was taking place, and from there to Palestine, and we know that wasn't a coincidence. Let's start talking deep now about the creation of the Sabbatean base in Israel.
Okay, great. Now, well, this is important because Israel was actually created as pretty much a communist state. The people creating it had a communist ideology, like Ben Gurion and his people around him. And what's interesting, one of the groups which was the most radical communist group was helping to create Palestine was called the Shomer HaTzair. Now, the Shomer HaTzair was all
young guard.
Yeah, it was backed up by Sabbateans like Brandeis. Brandeis, of course,
Supreme Court Justice. Supreme Court
of America. He was a judge in the Supreme Court of America. He came from a Sabbatean family which was fleeing from Germany. Again, I was talking about the 48ers, Sabbateans fleeing from Europe to America. And one of those families were the Brandeis family. And the Brandeis was a very ardent Zionist, but not just any kind of Zionism. His view of Zionism was Hashomer HaTzair, the young guard. Now, the young guard had a view of Israel where you have the new type of Israeli, the new man, the new Jewish man who gives up his old Jewish tradition and takes in this new kind of religious political idea of communism, pretty much. Now, another important concept they had, which is connected to Sabbateanism, is the whole use of the red the red color. Why they were using the red color? Not only because it was connected to communism, but because the Sabbatean theology actually believed in something called Da'at Edom. They were trying to get many Jews into Christianity through the religion of what they called the religion of Edom, but they said that was just a passing stage before they get into Da'at Edom, which is the knowledge of Edom, the Gnosticism of Edom, which was the religion of nihilism, and pretty much in the end their communist religion.
By the way, Edom, you don't mean Edom, you mean Edom, like Edomites.
Yeah, Edomite. And Edomite symbolizes red. So the red was very important in their theology. Actually, their mystic theology, they wrote it in red ink, the Sabbateans. So red was very important in their theology. And when they created this whole revolutionary movement, that's pretty much one of the reasons why red became so prominent in the revolutionary movement and in the labor Zionism, which was backed by the Sabbatean family of Brandeis.
Now, there were about 1 million followers prior to the conversion. When the conversion happened, then there was disillusionment among the Jews. But there were some diehard people who set up different cults of Sabbatai Tzvi. And the worst one of them was called the Donmeh, which was a secret organization. And the Donmeh was based in Turkey and in Salonika, and the Donmeh gave rise to these terrible orgies that went on, which became part of the immorality theology of Sabbatai Tzvi, corrupted later on. He apostatized himself 10 years before his death. So when he died in 1676, he had these cults doing all kinds of evil.
And the reason that these followers of Sabbatai Tzvi were doing evil was because what?
Here's the thing. The Talmud says that the Messiah would come when everybody's good or everybody's bad. There is such a saying in the Talmud. So the Sabbateans said like this: it's impossible for everybody to be good. It's easy to be bad. So they turned around the Torah and they said, if you do an evil deed, then you will use up the energy of the universe, and it'll collapse, and you'll force Messiah to come because you will have used up all the evil in the world. So whenever they engage in an orgy, they would make a bracha, and every day they would figure out a way to do as many sins as possible. Like if you eat chaylev, you're chayav karet. In other words, if you eat fat, according to the Torah, you're to be excommunicated from your people. So they would eat fat that was prohibited, non-kosher fat, from a kosher animal, which is chaylev, which is in that category, like eating blood from a kosher animal.
So they would dafka do the opposite.
They do the opposite
in order to hasten the coming of the Messiah, which is totally ludicrous. These sound like people who were today fodder for all these Davidian, David Koresh cults and all the strangest cults you can find today. Would they be the same type of people?
Same type of people, exactly. As a matter of fact, what happened was then after that, after Sabbatai Tzvi died, one of the most powerful Sabbatian cults, as they were called, was a transformation of the Donmeh, the most extreme cult, to Europe through an insidious person by the name of Jacob Frank. He died in 1791. Now the Frankists started to spread and take over entire communities and make them satanic. Matter of fact, no less a personality than the Nobel Prize winner Isaac Bashevis Singer describes how a community was corrupted in his Satan and Garay, which is based on very well documented history. So one of the sources that I use is the late Professor Gershom Shalom, who wrote a lot about Sabbatai Tzvi. Sabbatai Tzvi, the Mystical Messiah, is a very, very thick book in Hebrew and in English. It goes through a lot of things. So to say that he was involved in conspiracy theories is ludicrous, because he has documented studies. There are other professors also, through Gershom Shalom, that were involved with their students at the Hebrew University and are still continuing the Sabbatian studies, as they're called, because of the influence of this insidious group. And you can actually trace a line historically, which I do in my book, to the CFR from Sabbatai Zevi, and another organization called the Illuminati, which was founded in 1776 by Adam Weishaupt. And they were involved also in the French Revolution, which is also well documented.
So what you're saying is that there really does exist a new world order, that it's not a conspiracy theory, it's a conspiracy. And you're a scientist, so you only deal with facts. You don't like to go on hearsay or on jumping to conclusions. Only fact. You've done research and you come to the conclusion. You don't have to come to the conclusion. It's right there in front of you. You gathered the facts to show that these are conspiracies that are going on in the world. There is indeed people working in a new world order to try to make this, to try to take over the world power. That's what you're saying.
Right, and there's so many books. So some of the professors at the time of Gershon Sholem was Jacob Katz. Professor Katz wrote a book called The Jews and Freemasonry, which gives a history of the interface between Jews and some of the cults that derived out of Sabbatai Zevi. But the next big cult that came from Sabbatai Zevi after the Donmeh organization, which was in Turkey, the next big cult were the Frankists, as I mentioned with Jacob Frank. So Jacob Frank, the Vad Arboratzot, the Council of Four Lands, wanted to deal with Frank, and they decided to have a big excommunication on the 20th of Sivan 250 years ago. And there they made the following rulings. They said everybody that is a Frankist is to be excommunicated.
From the Jewish people.
From the Jewish people, bastards to the 10th generation, is what it said. And they prohibited people, because the Frankists were into Kabbalah, they prohibited the study of Kabbalah until you were 30 or 40 years old and you had a belly full, as they said, full of Talmud. Only then could you study the Kabbalah.
Right.
And they said they're women or whores, and they're hereby excommunicated from our people to the 10th generation.
This is what the Council of Four Lands labeled the Frankists, right, because they so deviated from Judaism and all that Judaism holds to be true and righteous. These people went off and made basically their own deformed religion, and so the Jews wanted nothing to do with them. They kicked them out.
That is correct.
Okay.
Now, studying the Frankist family trees, there was a family called the Brushka, which is like first cousin of Jacob Frank. Gershon Sholem spent 6 months in Paris at the National Library to ferret out things about the French Revolution in connection with the Sabbateans. So you can't dispute this material. There's a direct line with the Jacobin Society and with the Illuminati. And Gershon Sholem writes concerning the Brushka, he may have been, he said he was a member of the Illuminati, but he was devoted to Sabbatianism.
Are there non-Jews that joined this Sabbatian cult?
No, non-Jews did not join the Sabbatian cult, but the non-Jews did join the Illuminati. And
they worked together, and you're saying that these two cults or organizations or whatever had planned and staged the French Revolution?
Yes. They were involved in it, and Gershon Sholem proves it with the personality of the Brushka, who was taken and he was beheaded on the guillotine because of his involvement.
Wasn't the French Revolution ultimately, I mean, forget about the beheadings because that was horrible, but wasn't it ultimately good? I mean, democracy came from that. You got rid of this, spoiled upper royal class, and the people took over. Wasn't that a positive thing?
There were positive and good things about it. The question is, let's start assessing it from a spiritual side. After the French Revolution, there was the ascendancy of the reform and conservative movements. Interestingly enough, you start studying who the leaders were, the conservative reform, you'll find a direct line to the Sabbatian families in Europe of the Frankists.
So they infiltrated back into Judaism and made these cut-off religions. They formed conservative and reformed Jewry.
Right.
Okay, because before that there was only Torah-observant Jews. You were a Jew, period.
Right, and there was solidarity among all the Jews. After Sabbatai Zevi, you couldn't trust anybody anymore.
Mm-hmm. Where is Sabbatai Zevi buried, by the way?
He's buried in Albania.
Do people go and visit his grave? And
I understand they do. It's a Sufi shrine.
It's a Sufi shrine,
Sufi
which is Islam.
Sufi is a Gnostic movement in Islam, which seemed to have been a tremendous influence on the Sabbatean movement. And the Sufi go all the way back in history, prior to even Islam. And this business about virgins being a gift if you kill for Allah came from a particular Sufi cult, which were also Illuminati, according to one of the experts. Spence, who wrote an encyclopedia on the occult, claims that one of the Sufi cults were the assassins. Why are they called the assassins from hashish? The people would have hashish, and Hassan ibn Saba, the old man of the mountain, had a bunch of people that would assassinate people, and because they had hashish all the time, they were called assassins. So he equates the Illuminati with this movement, the old Illuminati prior to the 1776 organization of Illuminati. Now Hassan ibn Sabah, being the old man of the mountain, as he was called, had a tremendous amount of influence in Islam, and that entire Sufi cult. The interesting thing is that he set up these places where they smoke hashashin, were luscious grounds, beautiful, luxurious places with lots of grass and flowers and fruits, and virgins. So this business about the virgin and the reward was done there by Hassan ibn Sabah.
That's where they get their idea of heaven from.
Right.
Huh.
That's where that came from.
Interesting.
But this is all in Spence's Encyclopedia of the Occult. He himself, Spence, the author, was a Rosicrucian. That's another Sufi group. I don't want to go into the Rose Cross. So that's where that came from.
So you're saying that there are all these different organizations. One is the Sabbatean cult, which are Jews that were kicked out of Judaism. There's the Illuminati, which were not Jews. They were Gentiles who had their own little secret thing. You've got today's Skull and Bones Society that we heard about with Yale University and President Bush and many many famous politicians today.
Professor Anthony Sutton wrote about that in depth, too. He was the one that I just quoted earlier as being the author of Wall Street and the Bolshevik Revolution and Wall Street and the Rise of Hitler. So Anthony Sutton has written about that. He has a separate book out on that. Now I can tell you that in my 2 volumes, I start showing straight lines from the Illuminati and the Frankists, the Haskalah movement, the Jacobin Society, the Reform movement, and different years that initiatives had. The Illuminati were involved to destroy the Bible and biblical authority and to help promote biblical criticism in the university level.
You know what, let me stop you here because we have to take a break for the news, and then you can go over and explain this all to us, how everything adds up today and where we are today in world politics and policies and agendas and who's running things. We're speaking with Dr. Rabbi Marvin Antelman, author of the books, the famous books, classic books, I should say, To Eliminate the Opiate.
So why is it that when Rudolf von Glauer came back from Turkey after being initiated into the Donmeh Bektashi, that he formed the Thule Society? Is a very important question because everything's alive, folks. The Holocaust and the formation of Israel and everything that you think you know about history is a lie, and it's hidden within the occult. And so getting back to the point, why is it that when Rudolf von Glauer came back from Turkey after being initiated into the Donmeh Bektashi, that he formed the Thule Society and made it based on an Aryan race, if the ideology of the Bektashi was animistic pagan mixed with Islamic Hashashin and Sufism, with a Messianic Judaism, occult Saturnian ideology mixed to it. What did that have to do with Aryan ideology? And why did they form the Thule Society, Fraternitas Saturni, the Vril Society having to do with the Hollow Earth, Thule Society having to do with the Hollow Earth, and then the Order of the Cult of the Black Sun, Saturn. Why did they form this? Why did they form this Aryan ideology around these occult ideologies if they went to study, if he himself, Rudolf von Glauer, who changed his name to Rudolf von Sabbatendorf based on Sabbat, Shabbat, and Sabbatai Zevi, why did he form an Aryan cult, a cult of Aryanism? And then the other secret extensions of the Nazis, why did they form Saturn occult orders? And this is why. The Donmeh and Sabbatai Zevi got influence and into secret society occult theologies through the Bektashi. And the Bektashi had been, prior to that, had been infiltrated by the Hashashin. And the Hashashin are the assassins. And they were a Islamic death cult, probably Saturnian also. I don't have proof of that. I know that they used to smoke opium and hash. And the Bektashi is what the Kaaba is based off of. They were kind of like a pagan animistic cult that adopted Islam, and they would circumambulate monolithic stone altars and paint them in black. Some kind of black paint, and wrap them with a red sash. And black and red are colors of Saturn occultism, and most likely it was some kind of representation of Saturn, the circumambulation representing the rings, and centripetal force, circumambulating electromagnetic energy into the monolith, same as the Kaaba. And the Kaaba is the black cube, and the black cube represents the center of Saturn. That's why the pole south, or it's either the south or north pole. One pole is a hexagon representing a hexagram or a hex. It has to do with the Saturn seal, the Solomon seal, the Saturn seal, the Saturn sigil, the Freemasonic seal, the Star of David, the hexagram. And in the center is the black cube. The black cube is the cage for the mind, the imprisonment of the soul, the imprisonment of the mind. Because man in the beginning, came from mente, which meant mind. So man actually comes from mind. Womb man means womb mind. The upwards pointing triangle and the downwards pointing triangle represents the union of sexual energies, or the introverted and extroverted, the opposing opposites in union. And this also plays into Freemasonry, the pillar of Jachin and Boaz, beauty and strength. And it also plays into the right-hand path and the left-hand path of Sabbateanism in their reconfiguration of the Lurianic Kabbalistic practices of doing actions of good and doing actions of evil, and playing both sides. Also playing into the Hegelian dialectical problem, reaction, solution, synthesis.
Locals claim that one of the blocks here can be opened up and will lead underground to a secret area. Now, what really exists in this underground area? The answer lies in the name of the temple itself. It is called Gudimalam, which literally means underground temple in ancient Indian language. At the ground level, in the center chamber, we can see the main idol of Shiva. This is considered the oldest Hindu idol in the world, and locals believe that the real original lingam is hidden directly underneath this idol in a large underground area. Now, what is a lingam? A lingam is usually a cylindrical structure standing on a circular base and is worshipped by Hindus. But nobody really knows what the symbol actually means. Some historians and experts are arguing that the cylinder and the round base are symbols of fertility of a man and a woman. Some archaeologists have even gone so far to point out that the top of the statue, the very first idol of Shiva, looks like a phallus, and all other lingams were modeled after this. But I want to point out to something that happened recently. I want you to look at this rocket sent into space called New Shepard recently. Just look at the shape of the rocket. It looks remarkably similar to a phallus because it is aerodynamic in shape. And I want you to just imagine about what would happen if this rocket reaches and lands on another planet which has people who don't have advanced technology. Out of this rocket, an astronaut would come out who would be capable of many things those people would not be capable of. Wouldn't they carve an idol exactly similar to the very first idol of Shiva we see in this temple? Is it possible that Shiva was an extraterrestrial visitor who physically came from a different planet and reached Earth? The ancient Hindu text of Shiva Purana clearly explains that Shiva comes from a planet called Shivaloka. It explains the planet's position in the universe and describes that the planet is beautiful and shines with different objects. Was the lingam really a rocket or a kind of pod using which Shiva came to Earth? Perhaps the answer lies in these sculptures, which specifically show the doors of the pod opening up and Shiva coming out of the structure. Why do all temples dedicated to Shiva show Shiva's arrival on Earth as coming out of this cylindrical pod? Take a minute and think about it. Do you really still think that the cylinder, the lingam, is a phallic symbol? Or was it just a space pod which was designed aerodynamically and out of which Shiva emerged thousands of years ago? To cavemen, this would appear like a giant symbol of fertility, and they might have even propagated and even worshipped it as a symbol of fertility. But when we become technologically advanced, we can clearly see what these sculptures and these scriptures really mean. So the lingam was definitely a spacecraft, and it may have even been a nuclear-powered spacecraft, because it is often described as a powerful source of unlimited energy. But there is something much more interesting about the idol itself. It is made of a stone which does not belong to our planet. This stone statue is more than 5 feet tall, and even though Wikipedia mentions that it is made of indigenous stone, it merely says it is a hard, dark brown rock. The priests and other locals confirm that geologists have tried to find out the type of stone and have failed because it does not match with any other stone in the planet. Some experts have even theorized that this stone is actually a meteorite which fell from space. But locals insist that this is a stone brought by Shiva himself from his planet Shivaloka. Archaeologists and historians reluctantly agree that this is the oldest statue of Shiva, and the conservative estimate of this temple's construction is about 3rd century BC. But locals maintain that this temple is more than 12,000 years old. And there is something really strange about this temple. It has a weird energy around it. Interestingly, even though this is an extremely remote village and it does not get many visitors, and you can see that this is one of the smallest temples I've shown you on my channel, and it does not have any remarkable sculptures or anything. But strangely enough, it is visited by the most prominent Hindu saints, movie stars, and politicians of India. In fact, this is not a recent belief. The various inscriptions on stone tablets in this temple prove that this is a continuing tradition. In the past, many ancient Hindu kings also visited this remote temple. Why? Because it is said to have the original lingam, the actual space pod itself, buried directly underneath the main chamber. And Hindus believe that this underground lingam emits divine energy which radiates positive vibrations. Is this a mere superstition, or does the temple really have an underground lingam? We have already seen how they had employed secret doors made of stones which can swing open. Locals confirm that this secret chamber originally housed a map which showed the location of 9 secret doors, all of which lead underground. And the name of the temple itself is a dead giveaway. The name Gudimalam itself means underground temple. Locals in this area know the location of one of the doors. In this video shot by 2 locals, 2 guys are talking about going into the underground chamber. It is said that touching this weird figure, which is illuminated by sunlight, will open a passage directly underneath in this low-level area. Some even claim that the mechanism only works during daytime, as though it is activated by solar energy. Devotees also worship a window with 9 openings, and it is said the sunlight will pass through the center hole only on equinox. Are all these features mere coincidences, or does Gudimalam have a lingam, a pod-like device, in an underground chamber? Does this temple have 9 secret doors, and is it possible to find these doors and access them? Was Shiva an extraterrestrial god who came from a distant planet? Or was he merely created by human beings as a phallic symbol?
this pastor over here claims that his penis contains holy milk. One of his members in his congregation testified and said, the pastor said unto them that his penis was blessed. This Brazilian pastor also convinced his congregation that God could only come into their lives through their mouth. That's why he had to do so. Often after worship, this pastor will take his congregation to the place where the funds of the church were kept, and he asked them to do oral sex on him until the Holy Spirit would come out of him through ejaculation. Now, as we can see, the image of him claiming that his penis contains holy milk and it will bring many to salvation is something that has already existed, and you can already see it in the images of the Vatican, the Catholic Church, where they literally had the image of Jesus Christ with a penis on the belly or the front of the belly of Jesus Christ hanging on the cross. As you can see, this image I'm showing you right now has existed for many, many years, drawn and distributed by the Vatican, where they distributed the belief and the faith of Jesus. And now when you go further, you see another switch as a product that was sold by the Vatican. All these images are designed by the Vatican, where they designed Jesus Christ with a penis. Here over here you can see that on the right hand side of Jesus there is a child, and on the left hand side of Jesus there is a child, and Jesus's penis is sticking out in the middle of these two children, likened unto child molesting and the promotion of child slavery in sexual immorality. And you ask yourself, why did the Vatican Catholic Church promote Jesus in such a perverse manner? And when you look over here, you find out in Japan there is a worshipping of a penis god, where they worship a penis as a god, and this celebration falls around springtime, during the time of springtime. As you can go further, you can see these two girls in the celebration of this Japanese god called penis, where they even design candies, they design cakes, they design all different kinds of sweets or candies that are designed in the form of this penis. And over here we can see an image of a woman, and this woman has become a mainstream famous woman sucking on a lollipop. The lollipop also representing the penis in a subliminal message or information hidden in there. Over here we can see that the ancient celebration of this penis god derives its roots from Egypt. Egypt celebrated this penis god, and Egypt being a spiritual nation that was so strongly spiritual, people started to pick up other nations like the Roman Empire, like the Empire of Greece. They started to pick up ideas from Egypt, because Egypt was a very influential nation in the way it did things. And in the worship of this Egyptian god called Min, he had an aroused penis. He was worshipped during the season of springtime, where prostitution, where homosexuality, where the worship of penis was accepted. In fact, it was legalized, and it was, everybody had the right to rape, everybody had the right to child molest, everybody had the right to allow this penis to come onto them. Either if it comes to you through violence, through rape, you must accept it. Why? Because it was a legal right given by Pharaoh onto the people. As you can see over here, right besides this penis god, there are three symbols right on this pillar. There is a symbol of a pineal cone, and there is a symbol of a flower, and on the other side there is a symbol of a pineal cone. The flower itself represents the season of springtime, because flowers bloom and they show their beauty in springtime. Also in springtime, you see there is an opening up of flowers, opening up to receive the atmosphere or the atmospheric energies that are spread forth through summertime. So, simply meaning that this Pharaoh was a king, that in his appearance all women and all people should open up towards the worship of this penis god. But also see a pineal cone here. A pineal cone represents the third eye. Every human being on the earth has three eyes. There are two eyes we use to see physical things, but there is a third eye in the center of the brain, which is called the pineal gland, or called the pineal cone. So this pineal cone is the third eye, where we can see things through dreams, we can see visions, we can visualize, we can dream, we can even see images and symbols and ideas literally influence our third eye. The symbolic image of this penis god became the influence over the third eye, that every human being that lives on the earth will be influenced by Pharaoh's ideas influencing their third eye. Could it be that the mythologies of the Egyptians have now become the influence that have influenced this man who claims to be a pastor, preaching about Jesus Christ, but the Jesus Christ is preaching about is the symbolic image of a penis that was worshipped as a god in Egypt? Could it be that even the mythologies of the Catholic Church that calls itself to be the Church of God, that they themselves also are worshipping this same God called penis that derives his roots from Egypt? Today we are seeing that this same God is influencing the way people think, the way people act, the way people behave, and also influencing the sexual passions of people, either religious or non-religious. Don't forget to continue to listen more consciously.
Within my dream state, I become one as the electrolysis, the bottomless, unlimited, boundless, endless, the unmanifested and illitable, unponderable, indistinguishable, imperceivable, at least comprehensible to mortal comprehension, created and designed limitless within the instantaneous creation out of triple stages of darkness, the undifferentiated emanation beyond the experience of what human beings perceive as the five senses. I am what exists on the other side of the periodical table of elements, existing as etherical duplicates, etherically spiraling within my double helix. It will take you blasphemous MCs, 1 millionth of a billionth of a team of neurologists that analyze the speed and velocity. We escape through a dreamscape, through escapism and sink within meditation. And trapped in a deep sleep, we seek the afterlife, which is eternal life through a dream sequence. And then we escape again through a dreamscape, through escapism and sink within meditation. And trapped in a deep sleep, we seek the afterlife.
Reverse the universe, disperse my particles at 33 nautical knots per hour. A solar powered yacht in a sun shower, empowered the yang and the yin to begin to spin and form a double tetrahedron. I seen a sphinx breathing, standing next to heathens, devoured by seething locusts, ejected from the zenith. The body parts of God, Mother Earth received a penis, like Zeus to Venus, Osiris to Isis. One wired two polarities, you couldn't splice this. Original right knowledge, try to rewrite this. You're forced to speak in tongues, far and away your heritage from. Begin to absorb anything above and under the sun. No other than one vanishing point, the all ill Kaloum, who tried to transform the title when they raided the tomb, invaded the womb, spaded knew the chosen children, they created a doom. For otherwise immortal soldiers, PG raided the moon.
We escape through a dreamscape, through escapism and sink within meditation. And trapped in a deep sleep, we seek the afterlife, which is eternal life through a dream sequence. And then we escape again through a dreamscape, through escapism and sink within meditation. And trapped in a deep sleep, we seek the afterlife.
As life began with one thing in mind to be, and with this thought a thing became a name, impregnated and segregated by the will of who? The creative force, the source, the first, the nurse who gave rule of this side of the universe, the ray, making him the highest of sin. Thus things began to descend, as cells and atoms split by the command of the unseen hand, the ray, who anointed and appointed Panum, the fashioner of the clay, and Tamaray, who was the original vibration and creation of pulsation, accompanied by ray with Haika and Say, and Tar, the tongue will bring the word to be heard as a verb which occurred as Nunet and the chaotic waters who gave birth to Atum, later called the creator of this day. Atum was a part of a triad of Array, Atun, Atum, and Amun, three geneticists from Riz edifice. Atum presumed as the father of the sacred nine. In time they became names explained as water, wind, earth, and sky, symbolically the most high. Shu Tefnut was the first birth of Atum. Shu was the wind that began to blow. The second was Tefnut, moisture, the voice of the body. Shu and Tefnut gave birth to their first son, Geb, called the earth, who was alone on his throne, so he began to search. So Shu and Tefnut gave birth to Nut, symbolically the sky, the seven heavens that the so-called angels occupy. 3 was symbolically the eye of the sky. Within an effort, true intent gave birth to Uziah. I said Netut and Satuk killed his brother Uziah out of fear and jealousy and fatality. Satuk was the god of the light, jealous of his brother because Uziah was the god of the night. So they had a fight. Set cut Osiris' body up into 14 parts. They placed him in a sarcophagus down by the city of Heliopolis. Put his penis in a river found by the deity Sebek. He the sacred scrolls of Kemet Asset. Look for her loving husband, she obtained his parts, just a heart and a dozen. Her and Netut, her sister, went to look for the penis of his mister. They erected his physical cot, only performing the opening of the mouth ceremony. It was written on papyrus. They obtained the sperm of Osiris, who is now on earth called the highest and the wisest. We learn how the sperm was placed in the womb as set to give birth to a son. Osiris facets they used and abused. They named him Heru, while yet in the fatal, calling him Horus, who grew up and had a fight with his uncle in the forest. Set lost and was forced to give rule, and this is how it was recorded in the Tamarayan epistles. The Crystal City visitors from Riz perimeters.
Eternal life through a dream sequence, and then we escape again through a dreamscape, through escapism and sink within meditation and trapped in the deep sleep. We seek the afterlife, which is eternal life through a dream sequence, and then we escape within.
India is the birthplace of language, mathematics, religion, and it's the cradle of the human race. All roads lead to India. Sanskrit is the mother of all the world's oldest living languages. NASA scientists declare that Sanskrit is the most pure of all the world's languages. Sanskrit is the sacred language of ancient pre-Brahmin Hinduism, and it's also the source of European languages and even English. Contrary to what Western scholars and archaeologists claim, India is the cradle of mankind, and it's from India the geography of the planet was first explored and settled by. The Mayans, the Aztecs, the Egyptians, the Phoenicians, Aboriginals called Indians, all have their origin in India. The ancient world was once ruled by India, and that's a provable fact. An in-depth presentation of this study can be found on my blog in 55 chapters. This will be a mere breakdown of the most important keys that unlocks the true origin of Judaism and Christianity and clears the fog as to the real origins of world history being withheld by the rulers who are shaping our matrix through deception. They do not want you to know what I'm about to present because your mind will be less apt to be controlled by them within their propaganda matrix. Knowledge is power, and it's knowledge that breaks the chains over men's minds and takes them out of the cages of other men. In Hinduism, the goddess Kali is the consort or wife of the Hindu deity Shiva. Temples to Kali can be found in Mexico, South America, and place names in North America such as California.
The Mesoamerican Southwest of the United States is riddled with location names honoring the Hindu goddess Kali. Temples such as Teocalli in Mexico and cities such as Calicut are named after the Hindu goddess Kali. The name Kali is used for Israel in Hebrew, such as Kal Israel, which means all Israel. The name Kali can be found in Islam, such as in the name Caliphate. Maya is a goddess consort of Shiva in Hinduism. The Mayans are named after this Hindu goddess. Kundalini is a well-known Hindu name, and Kundalini is a South American agricultural goddess of the Aztecs. Aboriginals in North and South America are referred to as Indians, and the identification with India obvious. In Egypt, the Sphinx at Giza is the effigy of Simha, the man-lion incarnation of Vishnu in Hinduism. The Hindu god Shiva was worshipped in Egypt as the god Seb or Geb. The name Seb is a shortened form of Seba, Saba, and Sheba, which are all names for Shiva. The stelae, pillars, and pyramids which mark the Giza Plateau are called Matsaba in Hebrew. The cognate for the name Shiva is found in the word Matsaba. The Old Testament scriptures is filled with Sanskrit names to Hindu deities. The earliest patriarchs of the Old Testament named people and places after Hindu deities. The goddess Asura in Hinduism becomes the consort of Yahweh in the Old Testament as Ashura. Rama is a Hindu god whose name is found all over the Old Testament. Hebrew names such as Bala, Uma, Asher, Issa, Hosea, Hera, Baal, Adonai, El Shaddai, Jehovah, Nissan, Sabbath, Moses, Selah, etc. are all Sanskrit names relating to Hindu gods. In Judaism, one goes to a yeshiva, which is an academy or school to learn Judaism, with the Hindu god Shiva obvious in the name. The Jewish ritual for the deceased is called a Shiva, which is a 7-day mourning for the deceased that's referred to as sitting Shiva. The word for the number 7 in the Old Testament is the Sanskrit Hindu god name for Shiva. In the ancient world, Shiva was known as the Lord of Seven, or rather, sevening oneself. In the Bible, the Sabbath is named after Shiva, who is Lord of Sabaoth. Shiva is also known as the Destroyer in Hinduism. In the Old Testament, God as Destroyer passes over Egypt during the Exodus. In both testaments of the Bible, God has 7 spirits which relate to the 7 chakras in the Shivite yogic system, as Shiva is Lord of Yoga in Hinduism. The name Canaan or Cana is Sanskrit and from Hinduism. Chanan or Kanan or Chana are Tamil Hindu names for the Hindu god Krishna. The Promised Land of the Hebrews is a park preserve promised to the followers of pre-Brahmin vegan Shivites, or rather Indian Hindus, who conquered and ruled the world way before there was Mesopotamian empires. Canaan or Chanan as a promised land is designated by 2 important items in Hinduism, milk and honey. In approximately 1900 BC, a flood submerged a large portion of India as described by the explorer Strabo. Strabo noted that entire villages, towns, and cities were abandoned just prior to this flood. This flood changed geographical features in India, such as the disappearance of a major river in the Harappan area called the Saraswati. Those who fled immigrated west into the Levant and to the promised land of the Shivites called Cana or Chanan, where brethren precursors had already immigrated and established the Brahmanite empire of Phoenicia on the west of Cana. The Phoenicians are Indians from India. The Saraswati River was deified after this flood as a goddess who became the consort of the god Brahma. The The figures of Brahma and Saraswati are found in the Old Testament as Abraham and Sarai. As in Hindu mythology, Brahma and Saraswati are brother and sister and husband and wife, just as Abraham and Sarai are in the Old Testament. Abram, or rather a Brahmin, came from the kingdom of Oud, or rather the Hodus, in India. The etymology for the word Exodus in the Old Testament is ex-Hodus. Hodus in ancient Hebrew is Hindustan. The original Jews named themselves after Hindustan, or rather India. The word Hodus has the roots Hud and Hod, which is in the names Judea and Judah. During the ex-Hodus of the Hindus from the kingdom of Oud in northern India, the deity in the Bible commands a consecration upon the arms and foreheads of the migrants. The marking upon the forehead is a Hindu bindi. The word frontlets in Hebrew means to bind, the same as the meaning for the bindi in Hinduism. The Hindu bindi later on becomes the tefillin worn by Pharisee rabbis and priests in Judaism. Most everything in the Bible comes from the east, and that's because India lays east of Chanaan, or rather Canaan. In Sanskrit, a hermitage is called a Vatika. In Rome, there is the Vatican. The Shiva Lingam in Shivite Hinduism is erected as architecture in Vatican City, complete with Matsaba, or rather the phallus of Shiva. The word scarlet in the Bible comes from the Sanskrit Hindu name Shani, and Shani is the god Saturn in Hinduism. The Hebrew word for sea in the Old Testament is Yam, and Yam is the Hindu god of death, representing Pluto. Other names relating to Catholicism in Sanskrit are easily identifiable when cross-compared in Latin and English. The Gospel of John was written no earlier than 70 AD. However, the first verse in that Gospel was written 3,000 years prior, as it's a verbatim quote directly from the Rig Vedas. Like Christianity and Judaism, Islam is also origined in Vedic Hinduism. In fact, all ancient churches, mosques, and mausoleums such as St. Paul's in London, St. Peter's in Rome, the Dome on the Rock, and Al-Aqsa in Jerusalem, the Kaaba in Mecca, etc., are all captured and converted erstwhile Vedic temples, as their architecture clearly shows. Allah in Islam is Lord of the seven worlds or heavens, and that epithet is distinctly used for the Hindu god Shiva. The Kaaba at Mecca encloses a Shiva lingam that is kissed by those who visit Mecca on their Hajj pilgrimage. The black stone that fell from heaven is broken in 7 pieces, identifying the Hindu god Shiva, who is Lord of Seven. The city of Rome in Italy is in fact the city of Rama, and Rama is a Hindu deity. Catholicism is no less than another incarnation of Vedic Hinduism in every way. The Roman Caesar, the German Kaiser, and the Russian Tsar are all variations of the Sanskrit term Eswar, meaning the Great Lord. The British coronation chair has golden lions adorning its 4 legs in keeping with the Vedic Simhasan, i.e. the lion seat tradition. In the shelf underneath the royal seat of that chair is a sacred orange-colored stone called the Stone of Scone. The tunic of Great Britain's royal bodyguard is also of the Vedic bright orange hue. Statues of dead royalty and other elite in Westminster Abbey, London, may be seen by the score with their palms joined in homage at death in the Vedic tradition. In the museum in Corinth, Greece, is a large temple mosaic of Lord Krishna, hung for display, depicting him playing a flute standing under a tree with feet crossed and with cows grazing nearby. The Bible states that Ishmael, son of Hagar, and his descendants lived in India. India is called Havilah in the Bible. It must be noted that the names of Isaac and Ishmael are derivatives from Sanskrit. Hebrew Ishak equals Sanskrit Ishaku equals friend of Shiva. Hebrew Ishmael equals Sanskrit Ishmahal equals great Shiva. Bible students will note that Abraham came from Ur of the Chaldees. Western historians have perverted the truth of actual origins of places and names when it comes to theist texts like the Bible. Bactria, a region of ancient Afghanistan, was the locality of the prototypical Jewish nation called Jehuda or Jaguda, also called Ur-Jaguda. Ur meant place or town. Chaldean, more correctly Chaldiva or holy calls, was not the name of specific ethnicity, but the title of an ancient Hindu Brahmanical priestly caste who lived in what are now Afghanistan, Pakistan, in the Indian state of Kashmir. The city of Ur, land of the patriarchs, was near the border of Persia, the road to India, where the Brahmin had been born. A Brahmin made his home amongst the Sabbateans in Haran. Hera is a word that denotes Shiva, the destroyer. The word Hera refers to destruction in all its Hebrew applications, an epithet of Shiva. Hari, a cognate of Hera, is Hebrew that means to conceive or be pregnant, and it's the epithet used by those in Hinduism to denote the god Krishna, as in Hari Krishna. In the book of Daniel, chapter 10, Daniel has a vision of a man wearing a linen cloth, designated as the Lord. Daniel distinctly claims that the man's body was the color of beryl. Beryl is a blue aquamarine mineral gemstone. Daniel is relating the Lord's body is blue in color, just as the Hindu god Shiva is depicted as blue in color. This is compounded throughout the OT with the Lord's body being related to the color of blue of a sapphire in Song of Songs. In the book of Exodus, the pavement under the Lord's feet is sapphire. In Ezekiel, the throne of God is the color of sapphire, or rather blue. In Numbers, God tells Moses to command the people to create a fringe of blue on their garments, so that when they look at it, they recall the commandments of the Lord. Blue is the color of the Hindu god Shiva, because the god of the Hebrews, Jews, is in fact the Hindu god Shiva. Even the Israeli flag of the modern nation state is blue after Shiva. The word Krishna in Sanskrit is Krishna, which means anointed one. Krishna equals Krishna, and Krishna equals Christ, which means anointed one. The word niti in Sanskrit means a guide or law to follow. Krishna plus niti plus following the law of Krishna, and put together it's Christianity, or rather following the law of Krishna, the Hindu god son of Brahma. The name Christ is still used throughout major parts of India to invoke the name of Krishna. The Greek name for Jesus is Iesus, and Yesu is still used throughout India for the name Jesus. In Phoenician, it's Aiud, and the Ud cognate refers to the kingdom that Brahman was born and came from, which is the kingdom of Ud in northern India, or rather Hindustan, as Krishna or Ayud was born by Brahman. The early church fathers knew their religion was not new, but very old, and readily admitted it. Prior to 312 AD, the papacy in Rome used to be a Vedic priesthood. The Vatican in Rome today sits upon the ruins of ancient Vedic edifices. The Vedic priest of the Vatica, or Hermitage in Rome, was murdered by Constantine after 312 AD. The shivlings the Vedic pontiff wore before being slain by Constantine are on display in the Etruscan Museum in the Vatican. The name Constantine is in fact a Vedic name for the demon king Constantine, who tried to kill Lord Krishna in the Vedas. The Sanskrit papa, or rather the Pope's directive, is known as a bull or papa bull, and that's because the dispatch rider of Shiva's directives is the bull Nandi in Hinduism. Primal Vedicism is found around the planet, with nowhere being untouched. The term Soviet is Sanskrit, which is Svet. The term Bolshevik is Sanskrit, which is Bolshevik, signifying Russis who are sages. Communist is a Sanskrit term which is samuha nishta. Townships ending with the cognate grad, such as Leningrad and Stalingrad, come from the Sanskrit gram, which means township. 2,000 miles east of Moscow in Siberia is the city of Krasnoyarsk, which is named after the Vedic god Krishna. The Caspian Sea is named after the progenitor of the Vedic Rishis. Russians use the word agon for a fire, and this is named after the Sanskrit Agni. The Russian name Andropov comes from the Sanskrit Indra, who is the Vedic Lord of Gods. St. Paul's Cathedral in London was originally a Vedic Gopal, or rather Krishna temple. The main altar does not enshrine Jesus Christ, but the 8-directional Vedic cross or star of the Vedic god Lakshmi. In front of the altar is a statue of an eagle, and the eagle is the mount of Krishna. Overhead on the curved rafter lead supporting the ceiling are Latin prayers beginning with the Vedic incantation Om, painted in bold block capitals. Along the walls inside are sketched in bold relief sages and others taking a holy dip in the river Ganges. The Stonehenge is one of the most important archaeological sites of pre-Christian England. The Druids of Europe were Brahmani, or rather Vedic priests. Stonehenge is the Sanskrit Stavan-kun, which means meditational bower. Canterbury in England is Sankarpuri in Sanskrit, which means township of Shiva. There was no Aryan invasion of India because there's no such thing as an Aryan race. Arya is Sanskrit, which means way of life of the Hindu. Aryans and Dravidians are not races, but brothers in Vedicism, as Tamils are to the Indians. Canada in North America, a member of the British Commonwealth, is named after Channan, or rather Kannan, the Tamil Hindu name for Krishna. It's also the name of a Dravidian language. In Japan, its ancient culture is known as Shinto. Shinto is the malpronunciation of the Sanskrit Sindhu of the Indus region in India, and Nipponese, a word for the Japanese, is from the Sanskrit Nippon, which means skillful. Australia is Vedic, for the name comes from the Sanskrit Australaea, which means land of missiles, due to the pervasive Leonid yearly meteor showers that turn Australaea's night skies aglow, and the Leonids emanating from the constellation Leo refers in Vedic astrology also to Simha, who is the lion man emanation of Krishna in Hinduism. The word Hebrew is of 2 syllables, he and brew. The syllable he is from Hari, the divine name of Krishna, and brew, which is Sanskrit for speech. Thus, Hebrew means Krishna's speech. Jerusalem is Yedu Isha Layam, which means temple and township of Krishna. Zionism is the Sanskrit word Devanism, which means the cult of God or the divine group. Jews claim they are the chosen people, as this is the tradition of the Yedu clan of Lord Krishna, who are called Yadavas. The Yadu clan or the Yadavas come from southern India, and the Uds or Hodus are of northern India, just as Judah is the south kingdom in Israelayam, and the Uds or Hodus are of the northern kingdom of Israelayam, or rather Israel. Jerusalem or township of Shiva got its name because it sprung up around the Dome of the Rock, the octagonal temple of Lord Krishna. Melchizedek was the king of Jerusalem, who possessed secret mystical powers. He was also Abraham's teacher. Melik Sadeksena was a great Indian prince endowed with mystical powers. the son of a Kassite king. In Kashmirian Sanskrit, Sadik is a person with magical supernatural powers. A certain Zadok was also a supernaturally endowed priest who anointed King Solomon. The name Jah or Yah is Sanskrit. Jah is a name of both Shiva and Krishna among ancient Hindus. The word Jah, meaning God in Hebrew, and a word which is used in innumerable names in the Old Testament, in Sanskrit refers to Sathana, an attribute of God in general, meaning everlasting or continued existence. It is an attribute of Shiva in particular, who is also known as Sathenu. Jah also refers to Simha, the man-lion incarnation of Krishna. In the Old Testament, God speaks out of a pillar of fire to Moses. The god Shiva speaks out of a fire to Brahma and Vishnu in the Lingam Purana. Simhat Torah, which is a Jewish holiday, is named after Simha, the lion man incarnation of Krishna, and is the source of the term Lion of Judah. The Star of David and Solomon's seal, which represents the union of spirit and matter, is the configuration of the Hindu god Indra's thunderbolt. The pool in Jerusalem in the New Testament, called Bethesda, is Beth Sada, or rather, House of Shiva. The town called Bethlehem, where Yesu Christen, or rather Jesus Christ, was born, is Beth Lechem, or rather House of Bread, or Lakshmi, the god of fortune and a maid of Krishna in Hinduism. The Hindu goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, is in the Old Testament relating to feasting and food, especially bread. Shavuot of the Jews is named after Shiva, which is also the Christian Pentecost. Tongues of fire is related to the god Shiva in Hinduism. Bathsheba, wife of King David in the Old Testament, is daughter of Shiva in Sanskrit. Beersheba, the well Isaac's servants named in the Old Testament, is the well of Shiva in Sanskrit, or rather the well of seven. The name Illuminati is claimed to be of Latin origin, which is utterly rubbish. The Illuminati have been around for thousands of years, not a mere few hundred. The word Illuminati is Sanskrit, which breaks up into two prefixes, Ilu, which means gods, and the Sanskrit Minati, which means prayer, and the number 3. The meaning of Illuminati is Prabuddha, which means awakening. The cognate Ilu is found in Sumerian and Hebrew as in Elohim. This is the Indian Hindu caste system. And this is the modern-day global caste system everyone is under. Both are the exact same, and it's the Brahmanite Hodus or Oods from India who changed the image of the sacred cow in Hinduism into the image of the golden calf of the Brahmanite Illuminati, who retook Chanaan or Canaan, called Phoenicia in Ishwaralaya, or rather Israel, in 1948, that's sitting at the top of the global caste system as the all-seeing third eye of Shiva, the destroyer. So tell me, conspiratards, who is running the show now, seeing how everything is connected to Vedikism around the globe, including all languages, all names, most all countries and nations, antiquity, and all religions?